Remember walking into the milk bar with a couple of dollars and walking out with your arms full of lollies, ice blocks and chocolate bars that don't exist anymore? Products so ordinary, so everyday, you never thought they'd disappear. But they did. One by one, without fanfare, without warning, they vanished from the shelves, and a whole chunk of Australian childhood went with them. The 1990s, the last decade before the internet changed everything. Before smartphones, before social media, before we could order anything from anywhere with a tap. Back then, what you bought depended on what was on the shelf at your local shop. And those shelves were packed with Australian products made here, sold here, part of the fabric of everyday life. Kids saved their pocket money for the same treats their parents had bought. Corner stores stocked the same brands for decades. There was continuity, reliability, a sense that some things would always be there. Polywaffle at the servo, Sunny Boys on a hot day, Golden Rough when you wanted something cheap and cheerful. But the 90s were also the beginning of the end for a lot of these products. Globalization kicked in, supermarkets consolidated, manufacturing shifted offshore, and one by one, the products that defined our childhoods were quietly discontinued. No announcements, no farewells. They just stopped appearing on shelves, and we didn't realize they were gone until it was too late. Today, we're looking back at 25 everyday Australian products from the 90s that vanished without warning. Not specialty items or limited editions, but the ordinary stuff. The things we bought every week, the things we took for granted, and now they're gone forever. This is the big one, the loss that still stings. Polywaffle was an Australian icon, a chocolate bar that had been around since 1947. A wafer tube filled with marshmallow covered in chocolate, simple and perfect. You would bite into it, and that combination of crunch, softness and chocolate just worked. It was not fancy, it was not expensive, it was just there. Reliable, Australian. Kids bought them from the tuck shop. Adults grabbed them at the servo. They were everywhere. Part of the landscape of Australian confectionery. Nestle made them for decades, and it felt like they would go on forever. But by the early 2000s, sales were dropping, tastes were changing, marketing budgets were going to newer products, and Polywaffle was getting left behind. In 2009, Nestle quietly discontinued it. No big announcement, no farewell campaign. It just stopped being made. Fans were devastated. There were petitions, campaigns to bring it back, social media outrage, but it did not matter. Polywaffle was gone. In 2024, a small Australian company bought the rights and relaunched it, but it is not the same. The recipe is different, the distribution is limited, and the magic of finding it at every milk bar and every servo is gone forever. For anyone who grew up in the 90s, Polywaffle was not just a chocolate bar, it was a piece of Australia. And when it disappeared, we lost something that cannot really be replaced. Summer in the 90s meant Sunny Boys. Those triangular frozen pyramids of orange ice wrapped in plastic were sold at every corner store, every canteen, every servo across the country. You would tear open the corner, suck out the icy goodness, and by the time you were done, your lips were stained orange and your hands were sticky. It was messy, it was cheap, and it was perfect. Sunny Boys had been around since the 50s, made by Icy Pole in Sydney. For decades, they were the go-to summer treat. Kids would beg for them on hot days. Parents would buy a whole box and stick them in the freezer. They cost next to nothing, maybe 50 cents, and they delivered exactly what you wanted, cold, sweet relief. But by the late 90s and the early 2000s, things were changing. Fancier ice blocks started appearing. Streets and Peters brought in new products with more flavours, better marketing, and sleeker packaging. Sunny Boys started to look old-fashioned, sales dropped, and in 2016 they were discontinued. People were gutted. Sunny Boys were not just an ice block, they were a ritual, a memory of childhood summers, of school fetes, of cricket at the park. There were campaigns to bring them back, and in 2020 they did return, made by a different company. But the original Sunny Boys, the ones made in Sydney, the ones that were everywhere in the 90s, those are gone. And with them, a little piece of Australian summer disappeared. This one's wild. Tab Clear was Coca-Cola's attempt to ride the clear cola craze of the early 90s. Pepsi had launched Crystal Pepsi, and suddenly every soft drink company wanted a piece of the action. Tab, the diet cola that had been around since the 60s, was rebranded as Tab Clear. Same taste, allegedly, but completely transparent. It hit Australian shelves in 1993, and for a brief moment, it was everywhere. The marketing was slick, the packaging was futuristic, and kids thought it was the coolest thing ever. A clear cola? Mind-blowing. You would crack open a can, pour it into a glass, and it looked like water. But it tasted like cola, sort of. The problem was, it did not really work. The taste was off. It was too sweet, too chemical, missing that depth that normal cola had, and the whole clear thing was just a novelty that wore off fast. By 1994, TAB Clear was gone. Discontinued, pulled from shelves, erased from existence almost as quickly as it had appeared. People who remember it mostly remember the weirdness of it, the confusion of drinking something that looked like Sprite but tasted like flat Coke. It was a product of its time, a corporate gamble that failed. And now, it is just a footnote in the history of Australian soft drinks, a bizarre blip in the 90s that came and went without leaving a trace. Birdie Beetle is still around technically, you can still buy them, but the Birdie Beetle of the 90s, the one that came in the show bag at every agricultural show, every fair, every festival, that version is gone, and it's not quite the same. In the 90s, Birdie Beetle was the prize. Every kid who went to the Easter show or the Royal Adelaide show knew that the best show bags had Birdie Beetles in them. Those little chocolate bugs, crunchy honeycomb covered in Nestle chocolate, individually wrapped, were worth their weight in gold to a 10-year-old. You would queue up, buy your show bag for $5, rip it open, and there they'd be. 5, 6, sometimes 10 Birdie Beetles. You would ration them out over the day, savouring each one, trading them with your mates. They were currency. They were treasure. But something changed. The show bags got smaller. The number of Birdie Beetles decreased. The chocolate changed, or at least it felt like it did. By the 2000s, the magic was fading. And while you can still buy Birdie Beetles at the shops, they're not the same. The packaging's different, the size feels smaller, and most importantly, they're not in the show bag anymore. Not like they used to be. For 90s kids, Birdie Beetle was part of the ritual of going to the show. And when that ritual changed, when the show bag stopped delivering that same thrill, something was lost. It wasn't just chocolate, it was childhood. Cordial was king in the 90s. Every Australian household had a bottle of Cotties in the fridge, usually lime or raspberry. You would mix it with water, 4 parts water to 1 part cordial, and you would have a jug of cold drink that lasted the afternoon. It was cheap, it was easy, and it tasted good enough that nobody complained. But the standout flavour, the one that defined 90s summers, was Coola. A bright blue cordial that tasted vaguely tropical, vaguely berry, vaguely nothing specific, but absolutely delicious. Kids loved it. The colour alone made it exciting. You would pour yourself a glass of bright blue drink, and it felt special, even though it cost about $2 a bottle. Coola was everywhere in the 90s. School canteens sold it. Parents bought it for parties. It was the drink of choice for sleepovers and backyard cricket matches. But by the early 2000s, it started disappearing. Cordial consumption was dropping. People were moving to bottled soft drinks, juices, flavoured water. The cordial aisle was shrinking, and Coola was a casualty. By the mid-2000s, it was gone. No announcement, no explanation. It just stopped being stocked. Older bottles lingered on shelves in regional shops for a while, but eventually they sold out and that was it. Coola was finished. People who grew up with it still remember that bright blue colour, that weird artificial taste that somehow worked. It was not sophisticated, it was not healthy, but it was ours. And when it disappeared, another little piece of 90s Australia went with it. Passiona still exists, but it is not the same. Not even close. The original Passiona from the 90s was a passion fruit flavoured soft drink made by Schweppes. It was tangy, sweet, slightly fizzy, and absolutely addictive. You would crack open a can on a hot day, and it hit different. It was not like any other soft drink. It tasted real, intense, like actual passion fruit. For decades, Passiona had a loyal following. People who loved it really loved it. It was not as popular as Coke or Fanta, but it had its fans. You would find it at the supermarket, the servo, the corner store. It was part of the Australian soft drink landscape, sitting on the shelf, reliable and consistent. Somewhere along the way, the formula changed. Maybe it was when Schweppes was sold. Maybe it was cost cutting. Maybe it was new regulations around sugar and additives. Whatever it was, by the late 90s and the early 2000s, people started noticing. Passiona did not taste right anymore. The tang was gone. The intensity was gone. It was sweeter, flatter, less interesting. That punch of real passion fruit flavour that made it special had been watered down, replaced by something artificial and disappointing. Die-hard fans were furious. They complained, they wrote letters, they demanded the old recipe back. But it did not matter. The original Passiona was gone, replaced by a watered-down version that nobody really wanted. You can still buy Passiona today. Walk into any supermarket and there it is, sitting on the shelf with the same branding and the same logo. But anyone who remembers the original will tell you it is not the same drink. It is a ghost, wearing the name but missing the soul. The loss of the original Passiona represents something bigger than just a soft drink. It is about companies changing products without asking, without caring what loyal customers think. It is about profit margins trumping quality and about focus groups and market research replacing genuine flavour. The original Passiona was not trying to be mainstream. It was unapologetically different, proudly Australian, and intensely itself. When that disappeared, when it was smoothed out and made more generic, we lost something that cannot be replaced. The name is still there, but the drink we loved is gone forever. Tarax was a Melbourne institution. Started in the 1920s, it produced a range of soft drinks that were sold across Victoria and beyond. The flavours were bold, the branding was retro, and for decades, Tarax was a staple at milk bars, corner stores and supermarkets. In the 90s, Tarax was still going strong. You would see those distinctively branded bottles on shelves, particularly in regional areas. Creaming soda, lemonade, sarsaparilla, all the classic flavours. They were not fancy, they were not marketed heavily, but they were reliable. Local, Australian. But the 90s were tough for small soft drink companies. The big players, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, dominated the market. Supermarkets wanted to stock fewer brands, and smaller companies like Tarax got squeezed out. Distribution shrank, sales dropped, and by the late 90s, Tarax was in trouble. The brand changed hands a few times, production slowed, and eventually it just faded away. You can still find Tarax in some specialty stores made by a small company keeping the name alive, but the Tarax of the 90s, the one that was everywhere, that is gone. For Victorians, especially older ones, Tarax was part of the state's identity. It was proof that local brands could survive, could thrive. When it disappeared, it felt like another piece of Melbourne's character was lost. The city is still here, the people are still here, but the drinks they grew up with are not. Golden Ruff was the budget option. The chocolate bar you bought when you had 50 cents and wanted something substantial. It was made by Nestle, a chunky block of chocolate mixed with puffed rice, cheap and cheerful. The chocolate was not high quality, the rice was a bit stale, but for the price, you could not complain. In the 90s, Golden Ruff was everywhere. Servo counters, milk bars, school canteens. Kids bought them because they were big and cheap. Adults bought them for the same reason. They were not fancy, they were not marketed as premium, they were just there, a reliable, affordable treat. But by the late 90s, Nestle started focusing on higher margin products. Fancy chocolate bars, premium ranges, imported stuff. Golden Ruff did not fit the brand image anymore. It was too cheap, too daggy, too Australian. Sales were okay, but they were not growing, and Nestle did not see the point in keeping it around. Sometime in the early 2000s, Golden Ruff quietly disappeared. No fanfare, no announcement, it just stopped being made. Most people did not even notice until they went looking for one and realised it was not on the shelf anymore. For people who grew up with it, Golden Rough represented something important. The idea that you did not need much money to enjoy something. That cheap did not have to mean bad. And when it disappeared, it felt like another example of corporations abandoning ordinary Australians in favour of higher profits. Cadbury Snack was perfect. A small rectangular chocolate bar, just the right size for a quick treat. It came in different flavours: caramel, peppermint, fruit and nut, and they were everywhere in the 90s. You would grab one at the checkout, toss it in your bag, eat it on the bus. It was convenient, affordable, and hit the spot. The genius of Snack was the portion size. It was not too big, so you did not feel guilty. It was not too small, so you felt satisfied. It was exactly what you needed, exactly when you needed it. And the price was right, usually under $1, sometimes 50 cents on special. But by the late 90s, Cadbury was changing its product lineup. They wanted bigger bars, more premium options, fancier packaging. Snack did not fit. It was too simple, too cheap, too ordinary. It was not driving the kind of sales growth Cadbury wanted, so they axed it. By the early 2000s, Snack was gone. Replaced by other products, absorbed into the broader Cadbury range, forgotten. People who loved it were disappointed, but there was no outcry. It just quietly disappeared, the way so many everyday products do. Looking back, Snack represented a time when chocolate companies made products for ordinary people doing ordinary things. A quick snack on the way to work, a treat in your lunchbox, something simple and good. When it disappeared, that philosophy went with it. Now everything's either premium or bulk. The middle ground, the everyday option, is gone. Bubble Bill is still around, but something's missing. Literally, the bubblegum nose. In the 90s, Bubble Bill was the ice cream every kid wanted. A cone shaped like a cowboy's face, with a bubblegum ball stuck on the end where his nose should be. You'd eat the ice cream, save the bubblegum for last, pop it in your mouth, and chew it until it lost all flavour. It was messy, it was silly, and it was brilliant. The bubblegum was terrible, hard and flavourless, but that did not matter. It was the novelty, the fun of it. Kids loved it. Parents bought it because it kept kids entertained for an extra 5 minutes while they chewed the gum. But somewhere along the way, the bubblegum nose disappeared. Some say it was a choking hazard. Some say it was cost-cutting. Some say customers complained about the quality of the gum. Whatever the reason, by the late 2000s, Bubble Bill still existed, but the nose was gone. It was replaced with a chocolate nose, or sometimes nothing at all. For kids of the 90s, that bubblegum nose was essential. It was the whole point. Without it, Bubble Bill is just another ice cream. It is fine, but it is not special. The magic is gone. And while the product still exists, the version we remember, the one with the gum, is lost forever. Wizard margarine came in sticks, not tubs, not spreadable containers, sticks. Wrapped in foil, sold in packs of 4, and stored in the fridge until you needed them. You would peel back the foil, slice off a chunk, and use it for cooking or spreading on toast. It was simple, practical, and incredibly Australian. In the 90s, Wizard was everywhere. Supermarkets stocked it, corner stores had it, and most families used it. It was cheaper than butter, lasted longer, and did the job. Nobody cared that it was processed, that it was not natural. It worked, and that is what mattered. But by the late 90s, margarine was getting a bad reputation. Trans fats, health concerns, studies linking it to heart disease. Butter started making a comeback, marketed as natural and healthier. At the same time, spreadable margarine in tubs became more popular. Easier to use, more convenient, better marketing. Wizard could not compete. The sticks looked old-fashioned, the packaging was daggy, and the brand did not have the budget to reinvent itself. By the early 2000s, Wizard was gone. The sticks disappeared from shelves, the brand was discontinued, and margarine moved on without it. People who used Wizard remember it fondly, not because it was amazing, but because it was reliable. It was there, it was cheap, it did what it was supposed to do. And when it disappeared, it felt like another piece of ordinary Australian life had been quietly erased. Quick Ease was the antacid everyone had in their kitchen drawer, little chalky tablets in a distinctive round tin, peppermint flavoured and surprisingly effective. You would get heartburn, pop a Quick Ease, chew it up and feel better within minutes. It was cheap, it worked, and the tin was so iconic you would recognise it anywhere. In the 90s, Quick Ease was a staple. Older people used it constantly. Younger people discovered it after a big night out or a dodgy pie. The tin was compact, portable, easy to keep in your bag or your car. The tablets seemed to last forever, with no expiry date to worry about. But the packaging changed. Sometime in the late 90s or in the early 2000s, the tin disappeared. Quick Ease moved to blister packs, plastic containers, modern packaging that was cheaper to produce and easier to distribute. The product itself stayed the same, but the tin was gone. For people who grew up with it, that tin mattered. It was part of the experience, part of the identity of the product. The satisfying click when you opened it, the rattle of the tablets inside, the weight of the metal in your hand. When they switched to plastic, it lost something. It became just another antacid. Quick Ease still exists, and it still works, but the version from the 90s, the one in the tin, that is a memory now. And for something so small, so ordinary, its loss feels bigger than it should. Lolly Gobble Bliss bombs were caramel popcorn perfection. Crunchy, sweet, coated in toffee and sold in bright yellow bags that you would tear open and devour in one sitting. They were everywhere in the 90s, at the supermarket, the milk bar, the servo. Kids loved them, adults could not resist them, and they were dirt cheap. The product had been around since the 70s, made by Greens, and for decades it was a bestseller. The name alone was brilliant, fun, and memorable. You would say it out loud and it made you smile. Lolly Gobble Bliss bombs sounded like something from a cartoon, and that is part of why it worked. But by the late 90s, things were changing. Snack foods were getting more sophisticated, marketing was shifting, and Lolly Gobble Bliss bombs, with its daggy name and old-fashioned packaging, started to look out of date. Sales dropped, and the company decided to rebrand. In the early 2000s, Lolly Gobble Bliss bombs became Bliss bombs. The Lolly Gobble part was dropped, the packaging was updated, and the product was repositioned as more modern, more grown up. But in doing so, they lost the magic. The name was not fun anymore. It was just another caramel popcorn. Eventually, even Bliss bombs faded away, absorbed into generic supermarket brands. The original Lolly Gobble Bliss bombs, the ones with the yellow bag and the ridiculous name, are gone forever. For 90s kids, they were a staple, a simple pleasure. And when they disappeared, it felt like childhood got a little less fun. These were genius. Fanta frozen fruit Tingles were ice blocks shaped like fruit slices, orange, lemon, lime, sold in multi-packs and stored in every Australian freezer in the 1990s. They were tangy, sweet, and had that slight fizzy sensation on your tongue that made them different from every other ice block. Kids loved them because they tasted like soft drink, but in ice block form. Parents loved them because they were cheap and kept kids quiet on hot days. You'd pull one out of the freezer, peel back the wrapper, and suck on it until your lips were stained orange and your fingers were sticky. But by the late 1990s, Fanta frozen fruit Tingles started disappearing. Coca-Cola, which owned Fanta, was streamlining its product range. Ice blocks were not a priority. They were low margin, faced high competition, and required separate manufacturing and distribution, so they cut them. By the early 2000s, fruit Tingles were gone. No announcement, no explanation. They just stopped being made. Fans were disappointed, but there was no big campaign to bring them back. They were just ice blocks, after all, replaceable. Except they were not. For kids of the 1990s, Fanta frozen fruit Tingles were special. They were the ice block you chose when you wanted something a bit different. And when they disappeared, summer got a little less interesting. Another small pleasure, gone without warning. Lifesavers were iconic. They were individually wrapped, hard lollies in a roll, sold at every checkout in every shop. But in the 90s, one variation stood out, Cresta Roll. Fruit-flavoured Lifesavers with a fizzy sherbet centre. You would suck on the hard candy, and then, suddenly, fizz. It was surprising, exciting, and utterly addictive. Cresta rolls were everywhere in the 90s. Kids bought them with pocket money. Teachers confiscated them in class. Parents kept them in the car for long trips. They were cheap, portable, and lasted forever. One roll could keep you entertained for hours, but by the late 90s, Lifesavers were changing. The company was experimenting with new flavors, new formats, trying to stay relevant in a crowded confectionery market, and somewhere in that process, Cresta rolls disappeared. Quietly, without fanfare, they stopped being made. People did not notice immediately. Lifesavers still existed after all. But when you went looking for that specific fizzy sherbet centre, it was not there. It had been replaced by something else, something less interesting. The magic was gone. For people who grew up with them, Cresta rolls were a small but important part of childhood. They represented innovation and fun, something that made a simple lolly special. And when they disappeared, it felt like the confectionery industry had become a bit more boring, a bit more corporate, and a bit less willing to take risks. The Milo bar was perfection. A chocolate bar that tasted like Milo, crunchy, malty, satisfying. Nestle made it, and for a while in the 90s it was everywhere. Kids who loved Milo bought it. Adults who remembered Milo from their own childhoods bought it. It was nostalgic and new at the same time. The bar itself was simple, milk chocolate mixed with Milo powder, formed into a rectangular block. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't gourmet, but it didn't need to be. It tasted like Milo, and that was enough. You would bite into it, and the flavour was instantly recognisable, comforting, familiar. But the Milo bar didn't last. By the late 90s, it was gone. Some say sales were not high enough. Some say Nestle wanted to focus on other products. Some say it cannibalized sales of actual Milo. Whatever the reason, it disappeared, quietly and without warning. Fans were disappointed. There were occasional limited re-releases over the years, brief moments when Milo bars reappeared in supermarkets only to vanish again. But the consistent presence, the everyday availability of the 90s, that is gone forever. For people who loved it, the Milo bar represented something important. The idea that a beloved drink could become a beloved chocolate bar. That nostalgia and innovation could work together. And when it disappeared, it felt like another missed opportunity. Another product sacrificed in favour of corporate strategy. Iced Vovos still exist. You can still buy them, but they are not the same. In the 90s, iced Vovos were bigger, more generous, more satisfying. Those pink iced biscuits with the strip of raspberry jam and coconut sprinkles were a staple of every Australian childhood. Arnott's made them, and for decades they were perfect. The size was right, the ratio of icing to biscuit to jam to coconut was right. Everything worked. You would open a packet, grab a Vovo, and it was exactly what you wanted. But sometime in the 2000s, things changed. The biscuits got smaller, the icing got thinner, the jam strip shrank. It was probably cost-cutting. Shrinkflation. The same tactics every food company uses to save money without officially raising prices. But people noticed. Die-hard iced Vovo fans were furious. They complained on social media. They wrote to Arnott's. They demanded the old version back. It did not matter. The change was permanent. The iced Vovos of the 90s, the big, generous ones, are gone. It is a small thing, sure, just a biscuit, but it represents something bigger. The slow erosion of quality in everyday products, the prioritization of profit over customer satisfaction, the loss of the things we took for granted. For people who remember the original iced Vovos, the new ones just do not cut it.